How's it going? My name is John. I'm a software developer with about 10 years of experience, and today we are reacting to Developer Roadmap's roadmap.sh. This is the 6th most starred project on GitHub. We're going to go through it step by step and compare it to Latterly. By the way, here's Latterly. Latterly is an open source learning educational system, so kind of an alternative to Free Code Camp. The first impression is that there's way too much here. If someone asks you, hey, I'd like to learn to code, what should I do? Sending them here would seem to be confusing. What I would prefer instead is right out of the gate, it should suggest a path. I recommend you learn React, not Python, and that is a stepping stone towards becoming a full stack developer. In 2023 and in the near future, the ideal path is full stack, and there's only one language that'll help you do that, JavaScript. So fortunately, we can see that they have a full stack roadmap. So let's dive into this. Again, we're ignoring the fact that as a student, I would have to know to click this one. And it also appears new, so I wonder what would have happened in the past. But this is nice that they have this now. Cool, so here we are. Let's read the audience note. If you're already full stack, you should visit these instead. I'm not sure why you'd want to look at front end and back end if you're already full stack. I like that it's free. 0% done, so I guess it will track your progress if you make an account. Yeah, track progress. So that's kind of cool. It looks visually very nice, doesn't it? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then you get to NPM and Git. This feels like a flaw. I would have Git before HTML. Why? The reason is because when I'm building my portfolio, I want to get experience credit from day one. Demonstrated portfolio proof, verifiable by a third party. Otherwise, when you go to apply, it might take you, I don't know, it might take you 3 or 4 months to get down here to Git. Sure, some people may be able to get the basics down in a week. I like to design my curriculum to support a large population of people rather than just the smartest people. The smartest people are probably getting scholarships to Harvard or something, and they probably don't need to look at this roadmap at all. Okay, interesting. So it says checkpoint static web page. Let's check this out. As many projects at each yellow step of the roadmap as possible. No, I should do 500. What does it mean as many as possible? We need clearer guidance here, and we need guidance that is not going to waste my time as a student. So we need the teacher to be aware of the learning curve and to suggest the optimal tangent point where I'm hitting diminishing returns. As a student, you should not spend as much time as possible on HTML and CSS. You should spend enough time so that you can progress. So I think 2 or 3 projects is really the upper bound of what I would like you to do before getting into JavaScript. So let's carry on. JavaScript, here we go. Oh, and we have some links. These are great. So W3 Schools, good free one. Modern JavaScript tutorial. I'm actually not super familiar with this. So as much as I like this site, it seems extremely cavalier of roadmap.sh to just say, hey, go learn JavaScript in sort of one link. As a teacher, that's not walking you, the student, through the process in a very efficient or high quality experience manner. There's a lot to unpack here, and as a teacher, I should be able to provide this into ordered bite-sized chunks. Let's take another look at this. Is this already in ordered bite-sized chunks? So we start with an intro, that's great. Manuals and specifications. I don't think this is the second thing you should be looking at. This is a very textbook approach, and I'm not a fan, actually, I have to say. I think you should learn by doing. You should find projects that matter to you and that make sense to you, the student, and you should build them, and you will learn JavaScript along the way. You're not going to learn JavaScript by studying the ECMA 262 specification or by going through the stage 3 proposals. It's pretty comprehensive. I do like it for its comprehensive aspect. As a student, that is precisely what I don't want to do, is be given a link to a comprehensive list of all JavaScript knowledge and say, go learn that. That's not what you need to do. You only need to learn maybe 10 or 20% of JavaScript features to actually land the first junior level programming role. I don't want you to read books. I want you to build projects. Let's look at this other link. Traversy Media. Okay, I gotta say, I love Traversy Media. Traversy Media is a really great option. It's not the best use of an hour and 40 minutes, but it's a very good use of an hour and 40 minutes. Definitely better than reading this javascript.info site. Why do I say that a YouTube video that's an hour and 40 minutes long is not the best use of your time? This is similar to traditional lecture-based learning approach, which is non-interactive, it's not engaging. It allows you, the student, to sort of fall asleep for a moment. You sort of blip out and come back. There's a lot of academic literature indicating that this as a learning modality is not efficient. What should you be doing instead? Building projects or social learning, working with a group, working on a project, project-based learning, team-based learning, social emotional learning, something that matters to you. I haven't gone through this video, but I doubt that it's going to happen to touch on a topic of interest in my life, like a disease that may have impacted a loved one, or a social issue that I'm passionate about, or an economic issue or a regional issue that I'm interested in solving. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to my updated crash course. I did a video about 3 years ago on JavaScript fundamentals, and this is 4 years old. So don't you think that this is already out of date even by Traversy's own standards? The answer is yes. So he has a more updated version, which is called Web Development in 2023. This does show that the roadmap itself is dated, but even if you want to keep in the spirit of the roadmap, this will be a better way to do it. This is a 3-hour-long guide. It's very in-depth. And if you listen to this, basically he says you don't need to know all of this. So again, you have a relevance problem where I'm parsing through 3 hours, but this is higher quality. This is newer material. So how do I get the relevant information from here? You can click and drag toggle off timestamps. So toggle timestamps, you toggle it off, click and drag, copy it all on your clipboard, go over to Claude 2. You just type in Google, Claude 2. This is a free large language model. And you can ask Claude, I said, based on this transcript, what are the 3 first steps I should take to become a professional programmer or web developer? And then I pasted Control V, and it turned it into that .txt file. So I'm sending Traversy Media's transcript, more updated, better than the roadmap. I'm sending that to Claude, a language model, and I'm saying, based on this, what are the 3 specific steps? So I don't need to get my head around all the conditions and caveats. I'm just going to extract the most relevant, important, concrete things from my personal goal. Traversy, very smart guy. He says your choices are going to depend on your goals. So he has a section over here early on, overall goals. And so I think he would agree with everything that I'm saying. And this is a great technique where in just a few minutes, you can extract the part that matters. And we see, learn HTML and CSS, semantic HTML, CSS layouts, responsiveness. So even under those topics, calling out what are the most important subtopics, which would include semantics and responsiveness. JavaScript fundamentals, what does that mean? Calling out the most relevant subtopics, functions, array, DOM manipulation, events, ES6 features like arrow functions, and then Git and GitHub. So this is the most relevant answer based on the Traversy transcript. Now, we're not assuming that everything Traversy said is true or correct, but this is a really efficient way to extract information from Traversy. And I just wanted to share this data with you. Again, laterally, I think is even better than this. So we do a lot of this stuff, but a couple tweaks here. I would put Git first, Git and GitHub first, so that you're building your portfolio from day one and getting credit. And I would not say React or Vue, I would say React. And I would not say like any IDE, I would say VS Code. So I think Laterally.io will be a little more specific. So here's the site, Laterally.io, there's the checklist. I think this is going to be a little more specific and a little more efficient. And I should also tell you to keep an eye out for the search module. So even before you learn HTML, you should learn how to search. Why? Because if you run into problems with HTML syntax, you're going to need to search for the answer. You don't need to listen to hours and hours of information. You can search, you can chat with the YouTube video or chat with that source and get the most relevant answer as quickly as possible. That being said, if I want to go like exercise and like walk on a treadmill, use an exercise bike, or I'm sort of background learning. I do, even at my age, in my level of experience where I'm a senior, I've been doing this for 10 years, I background podcasts all the time. And I think it's not the best way to learn. Actually, we know it's not the best way to learn. But you could be doing a lot worse than backgrounding an hour and a half from Traversy Media. Here's one thing, let me say what I do like about this. Netflix is something that is familiar to most people. So one thing that's really important, in addition to building projects, and this is a project, and this is a trusted source, Traversy Media. So in addition to being a trusted source and a project, this is also a familiar mental model, which is extremely important. If you're someone who's trying to learn to code, asking you to build a microservice is not going to be super helpful because you're like, what the hell does that mean? But if you can visualize Netflix, because you've used Netflix, you're already familiar with Netflix, you already know the feature set. I need to be able to log in, scroll around, search, click a video, suggested videos. You can picture it in your mind. You have the mental model down. That's actually really ideal. And that's also what we do with Laterally. Now with Laterally, I suggest you build a blog. I think building a blog is much simpler than building a Netflix clone. And I would like to give you bite-sized incremental steps. So I stick by the blog, but I'm not mad at this at all. If you are an applicant and you came to me with your resume and with your portfolio and you had a Netflix clone on there, I'm going to be stoked, provided that it's well written and works and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to be impressed. My question would not be on whether the output is valuable. My question would be how many students can just look at this list and build a Netflix clone? It just doesn't seem learner friendly. And they also have a JavaScript roadmap. You don't need to follow it right now. Just learn from some courses and revisit the roadmap later. Golly. So what that's extremely confusing. It says you need to learn JavaScript. Here's a comprehensive list of all JavaScript knowledge. Here's a JavaScript roadmap. By the way, you don't need to do it. This looks kind of cool, to be honest with you. JavaScript, often abbreviated JS, programming language, it's one of the core technologies. So is the idea that you just sort of read this blurb and that's me learning JavaScript and that visiting any of these is entirely optional? That's also confusing. How do I know that I have sufficient level of JavaScript knowledge for some goal is entirely missing from this roadmap abstraction. With Laterally, I have a concrete goal. The goal is landing you a job, or if you already have a job, advancing to the next level, say from junior to mid to senior, and so forth. So we always have concrete goals, and we work backwards from concrete goals to concrete steps. Not sort of general knowledge that it's like, how am I going to use this? You want concrete steps every step of the way. That's what a good roadmap is for. So the idea of a roadmap that's filled with abstract knowledge is sort of like an oxymoron. It's like the opposite of what it's supposed to be, right? Beginner topics, intermediate, advanced, pick these after intermediate. Okay, so I like the ordering. So they're ordered through the check marks, but shouldn't they be ordered through the roadmap itself? Isn't that what a roadmap is? So we start at intro, and then intro is marked as beginner. Great. But isn't that sort of like implied by the fact that it's like the very first step? These are all beginner. These are not labeled. What does that mean? In 2023, you definitely need to know all three of these. Var, let, const. You should be learning all three of these. Okay. But maybe the idea is that variable declaration gets the check mark because you should do variable declaration before those. I can see how it could make sense, but I also think it's confusing. I would just have one module called variable declarations, and I would go over these three inside of variable declarations. Because I don't think you've understood variable declarations as a unit of education unless you have the differences between these three. These modules are not optimally organized if you're trying to land a job. Distinguishing between what do I need to know to land a job and what is optional is not clearly done here. If you were thinking, hey, if I know all the green ticks, but I don't know the purple ticks, can I land a job? I mean, the answer is maybe, because you might just get like a softball interview, but I don't think that that is optimal. I think you need to know how to use an API, for example. I think you need to know what a promise is, what a callback is. Okay, so what am I seeing here with this JavaScript roadmap? I think it is great as an audit of sort of all JavaScript knowledge. No, I don't. I can't say that either, because look at all these related roadmaps that it doesn't capture. If you actually want to land a job, this will be good for auditing your knowledge of vanilla JavaScript. And that's probably not like, you can land a job with vanilla JavaScript, but you're making things really hard. So basically, as you pick up skills, each skill is going to make your job search easier. I can learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Then I can learn React, Angular, Vue. There are jobs available for React, Angular, and Vue. You can see that as I pick up each additional skill, I'm eligible for more jobs. In addition, when I pick up complementary skills, such as JavaScript, Angular, React, and TypeScript, for a given job where one of those would qualify me, having more of those better qualifies me. So I rise in priority as a job candidate, and I improve my likelihood on every particular application of succeeding, at least to the interview stage, and then we need to talk about interview performance and so on. The point is, I can become God tier vanilla JavaScript and learn about garbage collection, memory management, and these really low level details. That's going to take me a long time to master. I could have used that same time to pick up the basics of many other skills. And from the perspective of improving my job search performance, that would have been a better use of my time. Okay, so let's go back to the high level. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, NPM, great. We talked about Git and GitHub should be way earlier, that's fine. React and Tailwind. Feel free to skip and revisit after learning some backend. No, don't do that. Don't feel free to skip React. Bro, where am I? What's going on? You should feel free to not skip React. You can skip Tailwind. I think in 2023, learning Tailwind is a good idea, but it's not required. Do not skip React. If you skip React in 2023, you might as well apply and put at the top of your resume, I really don't want this job. Like, that's what you're doing. If you apply and your skills section of your resume doesn't say React, if you're trying to become an entry-level programmer in 2023, particularly a full stack or front-end developer, and your skills section doesn't say React, you might as well just include in the headline, I'm really not serious. Let's put on these new goggles where I'm just sort of browsing. I already have a portfolio of a couple projects. I'm in my learning validation stage, where maybe I'm preparing to take some LinkedIn certificates and I'm questioning, man, have I really learned enough? Do I come through here and does this just shred my confidence or does it boost my confidence? So I come through here and I learn about the internet. How does the internet work? I don't need to know that, dude. You're not going to get asked a DNS question in a front-end interview. You're not. This is like networking. The rabbit hole of never-ending studies. Exactly. Leah says, but I also think a good skill to learn as a developer is learning how to research and read the docs. Preach on that. By the way, that is my first module. So I'll be recording this later today. It needs an update. But the first thing you learn with Laterally is search. I agree with that. I haven't seen that on any of these. None of these roadmaps are talking about how to search, right? That's a huge gap. Okay, and so then by this time you are going to start back-end development. You're going to learn about Node at this point. This is good. In 2023, you're already building Next React app, so you've already used Node, but you may have not done a deep dive yet. And so yeah, build your React project and then go ahead and do a deep dive on Node. And here's something I love. Postgres, it particularly calls out Postgres. I love that. It's not talking about SQL versus NoSQL in general. It's giving you a concrete best practice to learn now. Postgres. We love to see it. RESTful APIs. It is, it's a little strange to talk about RESTful APIs after Postgres, because if you think in the transaction flow from front end to back end, front end is calling the REST layer to even get to the Node server, and then Node is contacting the database on a second hop, right? That would be my mental model, is I would actually talk about the REST APIs before Postgres, somewhere over here, interactivity maybe, sample URL to fetch my data. So here we're talking about GitHub APIs. So we're already talking about REST way up here. But this is not a junior topic, right? Ansible, Terraform, you don't need to know those things. And then continue with the other roadmaps, because why would you ever start applying for a job? Clearly, the end result of this roadmap is another roadmap. I'm really not sure that it's a good resource. I think it will depend on the person. I think this is a good resource for some people. If you are sort of prone to anxiety, this might actually discourage you as you convert from the learning stage to the job search stage. That's exactly when you don't need your confidence to get nuked by some roadmap saying, hey, here's a box you didn't check. And actually, you didn't need to check that box, so you're sort of like misled by the roadmap. For other people that are not prone to anxiety, this could be a great audit tool and a curiosity tool. At the same time, I worry that even suggesting that is not optimal, because I could be studying Tailwind or I could be grinding LeetCode. What is going to convert to my interview passing? And if I follow the trail, they are not in order. In some cases, there's straight up bad advice, like feel free to skip React. You should not feel free to skip React. In other cases, there are strange relations between the roadmaps. So roadmap.sh is not actually one roadmap. It's many roadmaps that are sometimes related in strange ways. For example, it says if you're already a full stack developer, maybe you should continue with the front end or back end roadmaps. In theory, if you're already a full stack developer, you already know those. When you get to the very end, continue learning with front end and back end. Again, you should already know those. Being a front end developer, being a back end developer are prerequisites to becoming a full stack developer. They're not posterior topics, they're prior topics. Even at the high level, the ordering of some of these is really strange. Here, when you click into JavaScript, it says, by the way, we have a whole JavaScript roadmap, and this thing is super complicated. And it doesn't distinguish between what you need to get a job at various levels. Asynchronous JavaScript is way down here after strict mode. I don't think you need strict mode. These are indicated with purple, but some of them are required and some of them are not required. You don't need to know bitwise operators to land your junior role. You do need to know how to work with an API. So I don't think this is optimized for a junior who's trying to land their first programming role, nor do I think it's optimized for the job search at all. That being said, I think it's a pretty cool resource if you are not prone to anxiety and you're sort of informally browsing for general knowledge. Also, in theory, you could just go directly to the modern JavaScript tutorial. And this seems pretty comprehensive to me too. Maybe it's not about who's better. Maybe it's good to have two different options. But I would not send a junior here to learn. This is extremely overwhelming and poorly structured for a junior who's specifically interested in trying to land their first programming role. For that, you should hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and visit Latterly.io, where you can sign up free with a checklist that gives you step-by-step advice to land your first programming role. Hope to talk to you soon. One of the steps in there is join the Discord, so I hope to see you on the Discord soon. Thanks for stopping by.